All right. So chapter 2, problem 30. The first question we're going to always ask ourselves is, what do we need to figure out? What are we trying to maximize, minimize, or equal? The problems are, all these problems are going to be, we're going to try and find a specific value. We're going to try and maximize something. You usually maximize profit or maximize production. Or you're going to try and minimize something. You're going to minimize cost. You're going to minimize waste. So it will be, you'll always be answering one of those three questions. So that's going to be your red cell. All right, so the answer to question 1 is what you're ultimately trying to solve. Your model is all going to aim towards that answer, and it's going to be your red cell. Question 2, what are our missing variables that we need to figure out to get there? So what do we need to know to get, what pieces of information do we not have that we need in order to solve question 1? And those are going to be our yellow cells. So what didn't they tell us? And question 3 is, what are our constraints? Because otherwise, if you maximize something without constraints, it's always going to be infinite. And if you minimize something without constraints, it'll be negative infinite, or 0, depending how it's set up. So we're going to have constraints as well. So that's what we're looking at. So we're going to create this model. I'm going to go through the problem one more time quickly, mainly for the video portion, so if you guys need that later. So financial advisor at Deal Investments and identified 2 companies that are likely candidates for a takeover in the near future: Eastern Cable and CommSwitch. Eastern Cable is currently trading for $40 a share, and CommSwitch is trading for $25 a share. If the takeovers occur, the financial advisor estimates that the price of Eastern will go to $55 and CommSwitch will go to $43. At this point in time, the financial advisor has identified CommSwitch as the higher risk alternative. Assume that a client indicating a willingness to invest a maximum of $50,000 in 2 companies. The client wants to invest at least $15,000 in Eastern Cable and at least $10,000 in CommSwitch. Because of the higher risk associated with CommSwitch, the financial advisor has recommended that at most $25,000 should be invested in CommSwitch. The first question says, formulate a linear programming model that can be used to determine the number of shares of Eastern Cable and the number of shares of CommSwitch that will meet the investment constraints and maximize the total return for the investment. That's what we're interested in. Okay, what are we maximizing?
Profit.
Total return. So, yeah, it could be profit. Yeah, so we're maximizing total return. What don't we know? They actually tell us what we don't know. They don't usually do that, but they're telling us what we do. What don't we know? What will be our yellow cells?
How many shares invested in Eastern Cable and how many shares in CommSwitch?
Yeah, how many? Because it tells us right there. How much do we invest in Eastern and how much do we invest in CommSwitch? So it says in the problem, formulate a linear programming model that can be used to determine the number of shares in Eastern and the number of shares in CommSwitch. So we need to create a model that uses those, that we have those as the blanks. Okay, we don't know what those are going to be, but we're going to figure it out, and we are going to solve for the total return. So we need to create the model. So I usually recommend you kind of copy exactly what I do, but you don't have to. You can put up whatever you want. Your models will all be a function of your personalities. You are going to, John, we're on problem 30, chapter 2. And when you go to create your own model, it'll look like you want it to look. Later on, like I said, the models kind of need to look the same for them to work. Right now, it's just however you want to make it. So I'm going to start down here in B8 and write, I like to build horizontal models. So that's Eastern, and this will be CommSwitch. First, let's put down what we do know. Price per share, 40 for Eastern, 25 for CommSwitch. I'm going to run out of the screen because I'm trying to keep it big enough so you guys can see everything. You probably can squeeze everything onto yours. Takeover price. We're given that. I'm just going to put takeover for space. 55 for Eastern, $43 for CommSwitch. They also told us the minimum investment. What's the minimum investment for Eastern that they told us? Anybody remember? 15,000. Oops, that was a good move. 15,000 for Eastern and 10,000 for CommSwitch. And then what's the maximum investment? Do we have a maximum investment for Eastern? 0. Okay, we don't have one. They didn't give us. They didn't give us one. But they did give us one for CommSwitch at 25,000. Okay, so let's slide on over here. Next thing in my mind that we need to know is the shares purchased. And we don't know that. We're told we don't know that, which is a very convenient thing. Like I said, they don't always tell you what you don't know. So our shares purchased of Eastern and shares purchased of CommSwitch, we don't know, so I'm going to color those yellow. Okay, they're our mystery. You can color them whatever you want. You don't need to color them. But this really helps me when I color these to know where that is. Because in the bigger sheets, all the numbers kind of get mushed together. So to me, this is helpful, but you can do it however you'd like. Next thing, if we had shares purchased, we could figure out the amount of the investment. And the amount of the investment would be what? So if I said, how much am I investing in Eastern? What cell, how would I enter that in? Anybody see it?
Shares purchased times price per share.
Shares purchased times price per share. So we're going to go C8 times G8. Enter. Now, to get the one for CommSwitch, and this is just an Excel thing, I'm sure most of you know this, but in case you don't, I just go in this bottom corner here, and I drag it down. So now this will be C9 times G9. We're going to do a lot of dragging. The reason you always want to drag if you can is because it eliminates typing errors. Okay, it's not just some shortcut that might cause mistakes. It doesn't cause mistakes. It eliminates them for the most part. So the amount of the investment, we don't know right now. Now sometimes, like I've said in the past, I said on Thursday, this makes people nervous when you don't have anything in either cell. If you need to enter a number in here to make yourself feel better, you can. 500 is not the answer. But you could just, to make sure that the cells work, you can do that. For about 8 out of 10 of you guys, you say, I don't need that, but the other 2 were going, yeah, that makes me feel better. Okay, next thing is, what does your investment look like after the takeover? So we're ultimately wanting to figure out what your profit is. So we need to figure out investment before the takeover and investment after the takeover. So here is invest after takeover. And to do that, we're just going to multiply the takeover price, which is D8, and multiply that times the shares purchased. D8 times G8. And same thing, we're just going to drag that right down. Okay? Now we need to come up with our profit. What else do we need to do for profit? So if we knew the amount of our initial investment, we knew the amount of the investment after takeover, how would we do our profit? Well, first we're going to total these 2 columns. Now you could work these totals into, all right, to put columns, total. You could work the total into one big equation. I mean, you could do most of this in one massive equation if you wanted. But I always encourage you not to do that because it's easier to troubleshoot if you don't have really long equations. So I'm just going to total each of these, and I'm going to use my sum function. I have a little auto sum button right there. You can also type equals sum, and that's going to sum those 2 cells. And then I'm just going to drag it over to sum the other 2. Whoa. What's that?
Name.
Name of.
That's what it says when it.
You have to click on it first.
Yeah.
Everybody there, and then profit is going to be equals the sum of the investment after takeover minus the investment before takeover. So I-10 minus H-10. And there you have your red cell. There's the profit. Now we knew from the start what we were going after, and we had to build this whole model to go get it. But we're far from done. Yes?
Is what equation do you have in the red cell for profit?
I-10 minus H-10. And just so the video works, I'm going to stop it and start a new one, and we'll do two.